What's on, where, and when. It's the Talk of Nelson. Talk Nelson Radio.
Welcome to Football Focus, Episode 1, where we cover all things football in the top of the South. I'm Chris Butler, and it's my great pleasure to welcome my co-host, Paul Bryden, affectionately known as PB around the region.
Or Bridie, yeah.
Or Bridie, yeah, that's the other one. Hey, nice to have you here, mate. Our first episode on football. We've been doing rugby for quite a while now, but the call went out, comments on the rugby podcast that, hey, how about a football one? So,
well, it is the greatest game in the world, son. So I imagine we should
be doing it.
We should be doing football, yeah.
Indeed. All right, mate. Hey, look, usually we have a guest in and we talk about their background, but what I thought I might do in the first episode is actually to find out a bit about your background, because you've had quite the career, and it would be good to find out a bit more for those listeners that don't know your background about what you've achieved. So where did you start playing?
Well, brought up in Imano Street and up the ghetto, we used to call it. So those days it was Nelson United Juniors. So I started playing for Nelson United.
Right. Where were they based at the time?
Victory Square.
Right. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it was just up the road from us, and we played right through our junior career with Nelson United, and also played under 12s, 11s, 13, 14s. Right up to 16s for the Nelson rep team, and me and my brother and older brother Davey. So
yeah, right. I was going to ask how many brothers played at the time, because how many brothers have you got all up?
Four brothers. Three brothers, David, John and Pete. Pete was the rugby man. He joined the Navy when he was 16.
Right.
He was basically the odd one out because he went to Nayland College, where me, John and David went to Nelson College.
Oh, yeah, right.
He played rugby. We all played football. So
yeah, right.
Interesting.
Okay, so how did it lead? Where did it lead to from there? So, what clubs did you end up playing for in Nelson?
Well, those days it was National League was around in those days. Football was a big game. They used to play at Rutherford Park, big crowds. So when I was 15, I think I made my National League debut for National League. Doug Moore was coach, English guy, and then and I basically was with the National League team, and then. When I was 18, I actually moved to Napier because Nelson got relegated. I got approached by a club up there. They were the first year in the National League in 1982. So I moved to Napier.
Oh, right.
And of course, that year I got selected for the New Zealand under-19 team. But unfortunately, just before our trip to Papua New Guinea, I badly broke my leg in a game at Epsom Showgrounds in Auckland against Mount Albert Ponsonby. So I ended up breaking my leg and ended up coming back to Nelson and was there ever since. Played National League for Nelson, and then I think I got to 23. I managed to make the All Whites, and then Kevin Fallon was at North Shore, and I went up there. So that was in 1987. So
right, so Nelson United got knocked out. So what were they then playing? Central League? Most of the players would play Central League. The Suburbs had a good Central League.
Yes, they did. Suburbs were in the Central League too, and then Nelson United were in the National League, but got relegated. I think it was 1981. I remember rightly, but anyway, in 82 I went to Napier because they were in National League. So I broke my leg and then came back home again.
And then Nelson United got back?
Nelson got back into National League, and then I think they got relegated again. And I can't remember now. It's going way back. But
so who was the coach when you came back?
Well, I came back, and I think
was it Pete Simonson?
Yeah, Pete Simonson, Slotsy was sort of involved.
Right. Yeah.
So there was mainly the
players. And they were the days mainly at Guppy Park.
Yeah.
Right.
But then in 87, I went to Auckland and ended up playing for North Shore.
And what Kevin Fallon was coming, because Kevin Fallon obviously had coached in Nelson before.
Yeah, he coached in 77, 76. They won the Chatham Cup in 77.
Yeah.
And of course, I was in the All Whites in 86. And so 87, I went to North Shore. But I had another broken leg and got injured again. And then didn't work out at North Shore in the following year. Jarks Cautron was coaching Papatoetoe. And he used to coach in Nelson. So I went and played a season there. So I was in Auckland for a couple of years, and then after that I moved to Wellington. So I stayed in Wellington for 5 or 6 years. Really enjoyed it. So I ended up playing for Miramar, and actually came back and played for Nelson a few times. A couple of seasons, they're flying me back. but generally had 2 or 3 years with Miramar Rangers, which was quite successful as well.
So tell us about how you got into the All Whites. How did that connection happen? In order, obviously Kevin Fallon.
Well, that was 1986, if I believe. I was playing for Nelson United, and Kevin Fallon was coaching the All Whites, but he's also coaching Gisborne City. So he got to see players playing in that competition. So, and I had obviously quite a good year because we had a trip to Fiji at the end of the year, and me and another guy from Nelson, Craig Simpson, got selected. So it was pretty cool. We had a two-test tour against Fiji at the end of the season. We played one game in Lautoka, and the other game was in Suva, and it was really good. So,
did you get the wins over there?
Yes, we did. We won 4-2 the first game. We couldn't believe it was 15,000 people there.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were staying in Nandi, and the bus took us round to Lautoka. It was quite a bit of a drive, and we got there, and a lot of us young lads were going, "What's all these people doing here?" But I think Alan both said, "Well, they're here to watch us." It was pretty surreal. So
yeah.
So it was 15,000 at that game, and then the second game was in Suva on the Friday night. So we were only away for about 7 days, but it was quite good too because there was a lot of young guys had their first game for the All Whites. It was me, Craig Simpson, of course, a guy called David Choate, does a bit of commentary for the Phoenix, Michael McGarry, Fred de Jong, does a bit of work for Sky.
Yeah, right, yeah.
There's about 5 of us all got selected for the first time, so it was pretty good.
And you made the pitch, you made it on.
Yeah, well, I was left back, so yeah, it was good. It was
so that's interesting. That was interesting. Left back, because you're a left footer, but my memory of your games often was in the midfield.
Yeah, well, I was jack of all trades.
Right.
When you got a left foot, they tend to the higher you get. They're quite rare, so you get shifted that way a wee bit. But yeah, for the All Whites, I played left back or left wing. But yeah, throughout my career, I played everywhere basically: striker, midfield, even centre half. I played there or even right wing. I think the only position I didn't play was right back and goalkeeper, to be honest. Right. I've played about, and I think as a player you should try and adjust, because the further you go, it's a bit like a utility. You know what I mean? If you go to a professional club and you can play in multiple positions, it's quite a thing to have up your sleeve.
Yeah, yeah. So that position, you're encouraged to go forward?
Right. Yeah.
So overlap and try and get the...
Well, that's right. Yeah. And I teach the kids today. That's all about fullbacks today. They become wingers virtually. They just, you don't play over back four these days. The fullbacks really do push on quite a bit, and that's just the way the game's changed. So yeah.
Okay, so after that experience, you said you played quite a bit of time in Wellington, so 4 seasons there, and quite a successful time for you there.
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed Wellington. I was young and it was a vibrant city, and I was tied up with Miramar Rangers, and we won the Chatham Cup in 1992, and there was Barry Truman was our coach. He was an older guy, ex-All-White coach, and we had a really good side. We had guys, a lot of All-Whites at the time with Malcolm Dunford, who was captain of the All-Whites, and Stewie Jacobs and Chody, and some good English players, John Murphy. Michael Utting was in goal, and a really good club, big crowds. And we won the Chatham Cup.
Wow.
So and that was at the Basin Reserve against Waikato. We won 3-1. So it was, something to hang your hat on. It was a great time at the Miramar. And they're still a big club today, one of the biggest clubs in New Zealand. They're always in the National League, and they do things well there. It's a very good club, yeah.
So now sort of transitioned into coaching. So obviously you can't escape football. No. Was there ever a period where you were out of football?
Not really.
No.
I sort of played till I was into my 40s, and then once I sort of stopped playing, you never stop playing butts, you know what I mean? You always put the boots on. I ended up coaching Tahuna, I think was my first coaching stint, just local league, and then I did that for a while, and then I think I ended up at Suburbs with John Slotmaker doing the mainland team. I was there about 5 years, and then after that I've been at FC for 6. Obviously, this is my 7th season, but last year I didn't do it because I had knee surgery. So, yeah. Last year was probably the only year I've had off.
Yeah, right.
Of playing any sort of sport. So I also during summer played a lot of cricket. So I don't know. I love the team environment, and I love getting involved, and I really enjoy the coaching. I don't like the cold nights.
No,
getting home from work and then off to training.
All right. So tell us a bit about what highlight of your career would be.
Well, I'd say that Chaffin Cup
Right.
win in 1992 was pretty special. We didn't win the league that year, and also playing for the All Whites, obviously. And funny you say it, we beat Rangers about a month ago in Blenheim in the local league, which I've never done. So,
So even those milestones, it still creates a fist
It
bump.
might seem small to some people, but it's certainly, if you've been where I've been with this football club for FC for the last 6 or 7 years, going to Blenheim and actually trying to win over there, because you're always playing against 12 or 13.
Yes.
Was a major achievement, especially when we had to go over there on a Tuesday night with a half a team, a bunch of kids and a few experienced lads. So that was actually quite a good night. I got home and actually celebrated that on a Tuesday night. So yeah, but it's good. But playing for the All Whites is obviously a highlight of my career. I would have liked to play more, but a few injuries and other things. Who's coaching at the time, and also the time out at Miramar and winning the Chaffin Cup. And of course, I had 6 months at Bournemouth in 1985. Me and Colin Tour went over there. That was pretty cool because Harry Redknapp was the manager then.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so and I think that's what got me into the All Whites, because I had 6 months there, came back, and you just become a better player because you're training every day and playing. And they were in like the second division with like League 2 or something then. She's pretty ruthless. So
were you? Was this in like a wider training squad? Did you manage to make the pitch, or?
Well, we basically played through reserves, and we got loaned out to a couple of teams. But those days, you had to have a work permit, and the only way you get a work permit, you'd had to actually play 15 games for your country.
Oh,
so me and Colin hadn't done that. So these days it's a lot easier.
Right.
If you're good, you're in.
Yeah.
And Harry was quite happy, and in fact, there was one club, Torquay United, was quite keen to purchase. They used to say so. But just being there in England and being young and away from home and training with a professional outfit and some great coaches and some great characters there. It was really good.
So when you say it's a step up, what are we talking? Are we talking in the sense of fitness? Are we talking in the sense of physicality?
Yeah.
Or are we talking just pure skill level?
No, I wouldn't say the skill level's bigger. Like the players over there are bigger.
Right.
Than the players here. They are like some big boys, and gym sessions, you're training every day. Fitness is incredible. Like we don't train like they do over there. It's different, and it's competitive. England's a big place. So you can imagine being in England, you got young kids who are at Bournemouth, and we've got 2 Kiwi lads turned up. And they only know us because we're a rugby country.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want us taking their spot. So there's a lot of competitiveness, but a lot of players go over there for trials and don't make it. Some people have made it. Kerry Evans played in England. Ricky Herbert. A lot of players have, but it's tough. So it was great, and it sort of it opened our eyes a wee bit, and it certainly got me, I reckon, into the All White side the following year.
Yeah, right.
Which was 1986. And
we
had a cool time. It was good.
Good stuff.
Met some great people.
Hey, that's great, PB.
No worries.
Yeah, it's good insight, and it's probably a whole podcast on that. And, but we've got plenty of time to tell some stories in future podcasts, and I'm sure that those that aren't quite familiar with PB can see he's had quite the career. So, and he's still carrying on, so it isn't over yet. But we are going to get into some local football roundup, and let's start off with the Nelson Pine Senior Women's Premiership Division. And this weekend, it's Get Cars FC Diamonds versus Hothouse Creative Richmond Foxes at the Botanics. Nelson Suburbs FC Women's Reserves take on the Mapua Cougars at Saxon Field. Golden Bay Shield Maidens take on Sprig and Fern Tahuna Breakers in Tākaka. FC Nelson Wahine have the bye, and Motueka AFC Angels versus Nelson Suburbs. So quickly, if we go through and give our tips, so Get Cars FC Nelson Diamonds taking on Hothouse Creative Richmond. So Nelson Diamonds at the top of the table.
Yeah,
and,
well, they're doing quite well this year. Matt Walker's in charge with their team. He's right into his fitness. He's an ex-Chelsea lad, old Matt. They're doing really well, and he's got his team really fit. That'll be a tough game against the Foxes. I know Foxes are third, but they're only a point behind the Suburbs Reserves. But I don't know. That's I'd go for the Diamonds because they're at home at the Botanics. The pitch is a bit smaller, so that might suit them.
Nelson Suburbs FC Women's Reserves are taking on Mapua Cougars.
Yeah, Suburbs should win that, but Mapua, they've been doing quite well this year. I watched them play against the Wahine a couple of weeks ago. They're not too bad, but I would say Suburbs would win that.
And we've got the Golden Bay Shield Maidens taking on the Sprig and Fern Tahuna Breakers. That's in Takaka, so that's always hard when you have to travel over there.
Yeah, the old hill. Yeah,
yes.
Golden Bay, there's my son. Yeah.
Golden Bay and Motueka AFC Angels versus Nelson Suburbs. So we're Motueka. Oh, so they haven't been travelling too well. So they'll be keen for a win. But what are your thoughts there?
I would say the Swans would win that.
Rightio.
Yeah.
Nelson Pines Premier Division 1 Men's. This is your background, your home turf, but you've got a pretty good view of how these teams are travelling at the moment. We've got FC Nelson Locomotive versus Rangers at Neil Park. How are the Locos going?
Well, we played the Locos last week and they scored after a minute and then sort of parked the bus a wee bit. We struggled to get over them. In fact, we only scored in the 89th minute and the 93rd minute. So we're 1-0 down basically on full time and we stuck in there and then we got goals through Corey Vickers and TJ.
Right.
So they're tough, but they change. Their team varies every week. Obviously, they're up for us.
Yep.
Hopefully, they get up for Rangers this week, but they'll have Nick Croswell back. I can't see them winning it.
Yeah.
Rangers, pretty fit side, got some good experience. I'm picking Rangers to win that one.
Okay. Garden Motel Motueka versus Sheehan Financial FC Nelson First 11. So that's at Memorial Park in Motueka. Motueka doing pretty well, aren't they? You know, since they've joined the First Division, they've been quite strong.
Well, they've got Jimmy Latimer back this year. They've got a nice Argentinian lad in midfield. They've got this English lad, Ben, I can't remember. And some good young players. They're quite a good side. And they beat us in the Chatham Cup. So they managed to get a game against Suburbs and lost 9-0. But Suburbs are cracking quite good at the moment, the mainland team. So, look, it's a tough game over there. We just hope the grass has been cut. And but if you had to put your money on it, you'd probably go for Sheehan Financial FC Nelson to win that game.
Right. Okay, they're travelling all right. Fresh Choice Richmond First taking on Nelson Suburbs at Jubilee Park. So a home game for them. And they went pretty well against Rangers, didn't they, recently?
Well, Richmond only lost to Rangers 1-0 last week. Seals are quite a good side. They've got some experienced players, and Wesley and Ben Wright and Tom Marsden, and they've got some good young kids. I actually fancy the Seals here. They play some nice football. They got some experience, some good kids, and they just and Ben Wright up top.
Yeah.
He causes problems. Even he could probably still play National League.
Yeah.
Half a chance he will hurt this Richmond team. He's quite a young side, but it won't be close. But I would say a betting man would be the Seals this week to win that.
Nelson Suburbs FC SPL Reserves taking on the Sprig and Fern Tahuna First 11. That's at Saxon Field, home game for Suburbs. And they're pretty close on the table, aren't they? They both need some points.
Yeah, Tahuna's actually not a bad side. The Suburbs Reserves is basically the under-23 team. Very good side. They're the guys that sort of train with the top Southern League team.
Yes.
Nick Van Haddam coaches them. They've got some really good players. I'm picking them to win this quite easily. But Tahuna, older lads, and they've been trucking all right lately. They drew a mot last week, and then I think they beat Locos the week before in the Price Charity Cup. So it won't be easy, but I imagine the reserves too young and just a bit too sharp, I'd say, for Tahuna.
Okay. All right. We'll see how it goes. Then we're going on to the Southern League, and there's actually a break this weekend because of Chatham Cup. We'll talk about that shortly. So we're going to be crystal ball gazing to the following weekend. We've got Christchurch United taking on Coastal Spirit. Have you had a chance to watch a few of the games down at Saxton?
Yes, I have. Christchurch United are winning the league.
Yeah.
Paul Eiffel coaches them. Yeah, very good side. They've got fantastic facilities. Obviously, run by this Russian billionaire,
Multi-millionaire, that's
billionaire
right.
or millionaire. So, look, they do things pretty well. But look, in saying that, I watched Suburbs play Christchurch United away on YouTube, and Suburbs were in that game until, unfortunately, Geordie Young got sent off, and then things fell to bits a wee bit. But Christchurch, a pretty professional setup. They should win that. I would say that's quite
Okay,
easily.
we'll come back to Nelson Suburbs. We've got Dunedin City Royals versus Selwyn United. So Dunedin looks as though they're sitting above Selwyn. Selwyn down the bottom of the table there.
Yeah, look, I watched Selwyn on Sunday against Suburbs, and Suburbs put 7 past them. Dunedin, actually one of the better teams I've seen this year at Saxton's. Should be far too good for Selwyn.
Right. And we've also got FC 2011 taking on, is that Green? Yeah, Green Island Association Football Club.
Yeah, they're from Dunedin.
Avonhead Park.
Avonhead Park. Son, been there a few times. I would fancy FC 20 to win that, even though they are below Green Island. The Green Island's got to travel.
Yeah.
And be nothing in it, but I'd go with the home team.
Ferrymead Bays FC taking on the Nomads. So, Christchurch Derby.
Ferrymead Bays obviously got my nephew in that team. Koei Taripa plays in goal. They have a good coaching staff. I picked them to beat Nomads. I did watch Nomads here a few weeks ago. They drew with Suburbs. Suburbs should have beaten them. Wasn't a great performance, but I imagine Ferrymead should win this game this weekend.
Okay, and Cashmere Technical taking on Nelson Suburbs. That's at Garrick Memorial Park. So tough match, and they meet in the Chatham Cup too. So they're basically a double header.
Well, they've got them at home this week in the Chatham Cup on Sunday. Which, look, the way Suburbs are tracking at the moment, they're going well. They could turn them over, and I'm don't quote me, but I think Cashmere have lost their best player, Carmen Coughlin. I think he moved to Auckland. So in the cup this week, I'd fancy Suburbs down there in the league. Well, it's Tech top 2 obviously going to National League, so I'd fancy Tech to win that league game next week.
Okie dokes. All right, overseas news, and Man City does the treble, so they really sort of came through in the end, didn't they?
Well, I did say to people, I said, look, Arsenal will choke. People won't like me hearing saying that, but look, you got to take your head off to Pep Guardiola. He's been there 7 years. The trophies he's won. Okay, you can say they've got the money and that sort of thing, but he gets the players. But you still got to make the players work. And getting the treble, amazing. And obviously, he just seems to get the right players, and he gets to get the right players to work hard. Obviously, that Haaland coming in, creating all sorts of records.
Yeah.
Banging them in left, right, and centre, but in a quality team, and they're just organised. Well done to them. And the way they play, they just dominate possession. They just wear teams down. And Arsenal in the end, who were leading for most of the season, just lack that experience at the end.
Yeah.
With Guardiola's been there, Arteta's, new to management, even though he's been there 2 or 3 years, and the depth Man City's got, and
just came through in the end, didn't they?
Came through. And the thing about it, if you look at the key players, you look at guys like Kevin De Bruyne. He doesn't do much for Belgium, but for Man City, for Man City, these guys seem to perform. Gundogan doesn't do much for Germany. For Man City, outstanding. So you have to put it down to Guardiola, the way he sets them up, and the way they train, the way they do things. Yeah.
Well, the players just say he's a genius, exactly. And that's coming from their own players.
And and to be honest, I can't, until he leaves, I can't see things changing too much there. So I don't know. He's not going to stay there forever, obviously. And he will have other challenges, I imagine. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years. But
I remember a reporter asking him, his thoughts on the next season, and he just collapsed.
Yeah.
And, they only really just beat Inter Milan. Inter Milan had 2 chances there. It was luck that they didn't actually put two past them, actually. And Pep actually said it just goes to show how hard it is, to achieve that type of success.
Well, the thing is, when you're top, everyone's out to do you. Everyone's out to beat you.
And I thought Inter Milan they played well. I thought they played defensively. They played well, and they almost took their chances, but they just couldn't.
Yeah, well, Lukaku really should have scored.
Yeah.
Either side of the keeper. It's Man City got a great goal. Yeah, look, but confidence, and they're used to winning. And it was their season, mate. You know, someone said to me, "Who are you going to win the champ?" I said, "Well, you'd have to fancy Man City." You know, but they got the double and they went on. But yeah, no, you're right. Inter Milan really did push them. I was surprised. I thought it would have been a lot easier than it was, and it wasn't. And full credit to Inter Milan. They actually set up well and actually nullified, done their homework on Man City, and, you know, stopped them playing and played through them and actually did really well. But at the end of the day, 3 in a row.
Yeah.
They got the treble. You can't say much more than that. So
that's right. And so your thoughts on the Premier League this season? I mean, one disappointing result, obviously, the mighty Leeds having to go down. So what were your thoughts about that?
Oh, like a bit of a shambles, to be honest. You know, they bought, you know, people say to me they got rid of Bielsa last year. They bought on Jesse Marsh, the American guy. He still calls it Saka. He bought a lot of players with him from which I didn't think were up to it. And in the end, he got fired, and then they brought in Gracia, who was doing all right with them. And then all of a sudden we lost. The turning point was Crystal Palace at home, 1-0 up. We ended up losing 5-1, and then the wheels just fell off. Then he got sacked. And, of course, they bought Big Sam in.
Yeah, that's right.
Big Sam comes in, he goes, well, I'm the genius.
That's right. You talk about Pep, but, you know, I've been around.
I've been around. So he had 4 games. He was on £1 million bonus if he could keep Leeds up. Well, I think we managed to get a result against Newcastle 2-2, and then I was starting to be friends. I asked my mates, I said, I just don't know how we're going to win.
Yeah.
But in saying that, Bamford missed a penalty against Newcastle. Then we played Leicester, and Bamford missed an open goal. So, look, they had the chances, but at the end of the day, we weren't good enough. And the league table doesn't lie, but at the end of the day,
right.
it doesn't lie. And us, Leicester, and obviously Southampton went down. So, the league table doesn't lie. And but I was surprised. It certainly wasn't my pick. I actually picked I did pick Southampton to go down. I also picked Southampton, Bournemouth, and Nottingham Forest. But those two, Bournemouth surprised me. Hard to beat at the Dean Court, the Vitality Stadium, real small ground. But in the end, disappointed with Leeds, but I sort of expected it, so it wasn't a shock. Last year, we went to the last game, we beat Brentford away. I thought we were good enough to stay up, and I was excited. But this year, I was resigned to the fact that we're going down. But they've been bought out. The San Francisco 49ers, NFL teams taking whole ownership of the club, so there might be a bit of money to spend, so they'll be looking to bounce back.
They'll be back. All right, and
won't be easy.
My take on things were, I mean, Bristol City, man, they do well, and then my beloved Fulham stayed in there. We're actually trucking pretty well at one stage, 7th or got up to 6th at one point. But
good side.
Yep, probably about right, about middle of the table. That's I thought that's probably where they were. But I thought at one point there, geez, they were playing some good football. And Man United back, they found their mojo again. And what happened to Chelsea? I mean, Chelsea's obviously they really struggled, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Trouble with Chelsea, and it's a bit like Forest. Forest bought in 20 players, so it takes time to gel. Chelsea went and bought loads and loads spent loads of money, 500 million quid or something. And of course, you've got all this talent, and unless you've got it right, where Graham Potter did, I don't think he knew who to pick each week.
Right.
And good coach, he did well with Brighton, and in the end, it cost him his job. Then they bought. I think Frank Lampard was there at the end, wasn't he? And
yeah, that's right. So they booted him out, and then he's back there, and he had I don't know how many losses in a row. So
this is Chelsea's worst season for a long time. But they were poor. They were defensively poor. They were lazy. Players took it for granted. They were going to get picked, and it was they were a bit shambolic, but they're still there, son. They'll bounce back. They'll just go out, get another manager. Someone will come in and get to restructure everything, and they'll get it right. But the biggest team I thought's done real with it was Brighton, the lad that come in and took over.
Oh yeah. So I said Bristol City, didn't I? I meant Brighton.
Oh,
I was talking about Brighton.
I wonder when you said Bristol City, they were in the Championship. No, Brighton came. Brighton,
Brighton.
Brighton did really, really well. And in fact, there was a thing on I watched. They get these players for nothing, and then they sell them for big money. So the CEO is wrapped with the way things are going, and play good football, well organised, and the lad, I can't remember his name now, but great coach. He's first at the training pitch, last to leave, got them organised. They love him, and that's what it's all about. You know, a manager that respects you, you're always going to go far. So they've done well. But the Premier League's a great competition. Don't get me wrong, loved it.
And we've got the European Nations semi-finals happening at the moment as well. So I just noticed that prior to the podcast. So we'll keep an eye on the semis at the moment, and then we'll talk about the final next week. New Zealand football, Chatham Cup, we've talked about that. So Nelson Suburbs taking on Kashmir at home. So every chance that Nelson Suburbs could tip them up.
Well, they played really well last week, and I think, they looked good last week, but Kashmir is a completely different kettle of fish. Very experienced, strong side. And but look, if they can just keep it tight at the back, take their chances. Going forward, 7 goals last week. The lad up front, Gillespie's a tidy player. Ross McPhee didn't play last week. And I thought it was one of their better performances last week, even though Selwyn weren't flash. Look, they've got a chance, but look, they've got a team against Kashmir. It's 90-minute game. You can't. In the past, they get 1-0 up, and then Kashmir Tech will get 3 in 10 minutes. They just switch off. So if they can just concentrate for the whole 90, I know it's not easy, and just work through it, they could get a result this weekend. Be good.
Kate Shepherd Cup, Nelson Suburbs taking on Coastal Spirit. So, have you seen?
I watched the girls play. They're quite a good side. They're in that mainland league now.
Yeah.
And Coastal quite a good side. Won't be easy, but it's at home. So at home, good crowd there on Sunday. They should have a chance.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
A bit disappointed. I couldn't find any information on the Women's Southern League, so on the New Zealand Football website. So I'll have to try and search a bit deeper for that and see if I can find some more information.
Well, I think they drew at the weekend. I'm not too sure.
Right.
They won last week against Hallsville 6-0, I think. I'm not,
Well,
don't quote me on that.
My expectations, I would want to see that league on the New Zealand website, which is where the rest of the stuff is. So if someone can put in the comments, give me a link to that table, I'd be grateful for that. New Zealand under-20s, they played in the World Cup, ended up being Uruguay over Italy. I thought actually Italy looked like a good side, so Uruguay to get over top of them in the final, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I watched a bit of that football. Great little tournament, great for New Zealand. And New Zealand football at the moment, because we only have to win Oceania, we get qualified for these World Cups, and it's the same for the Men's World Cup next, so we should make it. So, great opportunity for youngsters today to play in World Cups if they're any good. So, and they did all right. I think they beat Armenia or someone. They had a win and a draw.
Yeah.
I think they got done by the States in the end.
They did, yeah.
But great experience for those kids.
Absolutely. There's a couple of all-white fixtures coming up. In fact, they're over there at the moment, Friday tomorrow, or Friday 16th, Friends Arena in Stockholm, 7 p.m, 5 a.m. New Zealand time. The All Whites take on Sweden.
Well, that's going to be a big ask.
Yeah.
All Whites are ranked 100th in the world. Sweden are about 22nd. So, look, I like what New Zealand football's the All Whites are doing at the moment. I know Danny Hayes chucked it in and Darren Beasley's picked up the reins. But we've got quite a good young team, some good players. A lot of our players play overseas at the moment, playing in Europe. A lot of them, few play in Sweden, Denmark. So, look, I enjoy watching them play. And but this they don't get many games, which is unfortunate because just the way we are, where we're situated. So to get the game against Sweden and a game against Qatar is really good. So
yeah, absolutely. So Qatar is on Monday, 19th of June at Generali Arena in Vienna. How about that? That's 4 a.m. New Zealand time if you're really keen, or record it. So Qatar will be probably fairly handy as well, I'd say.
Well, they would be, but that one's probably more beatable than Sweden away.
Yes,
I would say. You know, there's not too many Swedish players playing the Premier League. I think they Alanga's at Man United, but against Qatar, the All Whites got a chance. So.
Yeah. And just a couple of announcements. The squad was announced for the Oceania Under-19 Women's Championship. So that kicks off against Fiji on the 22nd of June and followed by Papua New Guinea on the 25th of June. So good luck to the Under-19s. And, of course, the big one coming up, 35 days to go to the World Cup, the Ford Football Ferns. So it's going to really put women's football on the map. And just look at the amount of teams that are in our local Premier League, not to mention other leagues locally. The game has really grown, and to have the World Cup on our home patch is just such a positive thing. So how are we looking with the Football Ferns, you reckon?
Well, I think they've got a tough group: Norway, Philippines, Switzerland. I think Philippines is beatable. Look, they haven't had a great build-up. They had, I think, the last 10 games, they only scored 1 or 2 goals. I'm surprised the coach didn't bring someone in to give her a hand. That extra 10, 20% with another set of eyes there, maybe a Danny Hay, who's not doing anything at the moment or whatever, just to come in and give her a hand. But look, she seems to have it under control. Look, you won't die wondering. They'll be organised. I think she picks the side next week, the final squad. Look, a lot of our players are playing overseas. But look, as you say, it'd be a fantastic achievement to have a tournament here. I think they sold 250,000 tickets for New Zealand. They sold about 1 million and I don't know, about 1 million in Australia, I think.
Right.
So, and there's still time to go. So look, the country's going to get behind it. The only trouble, they could probably do a bit more marketing, and a lot of people don't know it's on, especially where the games are. I think New Zealand playing in Auckland, Wellington and Dunedin. So, but it hasn't been a great build-up, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Or maybe they can approach us, Paul, and we'll
that's right.
We'll pump it up.
Yeah. All good.
All right. Hey, look, thanks very much. That's our first podcast for Football Focus, and there's going to be more to come. So thank you very much for joining us, Paul.
Enjoyed it.
And we'll be getting some guests on the show from our local football community, and be digging deep into their backgrounds and also getting their thoughts on the local game. But really appreciate you being part of this.
No problem.
All right, and thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again all next week.
What's on, where, and when? It's the Talk of Nelson. Talk Nelson Radio.